bridge to make it to that experience. Even if it's your birthright, even if it's the way God created you, if you don't know it in your heart, if you don't know it as an actual experience, then that's where the steps come in, that's where the mind training comes in, that's where the mental discipline, and I think everybody knows that from almost any pathway. We're at a yoga center. If you didn't have any discipline, I don't think yoga would be yoga without the discipline. I mean, it just wouldn't be what it is. It wouldn't achieve its purpose without the discipline. It's the same with training for anything in this world. If you didn't discipline your mind, and if you didn't value what you were going for, you wouldn't achieve the goal. And peace of mind isn't really a goal in the sense that it's a state of mind that just is the nature of what is. Like Byron Katie called it, loving what is. And it is what is. And yet, when it's not your awareness or it's not your experience, then it seems like you're in for a devotional time of turning your mind around from fear to love and coming fully into the love. And that's really what we want to talk about today. There will seem to be steps that you take, there will seem to be guidances, and yes, with Desiree and Francis we had another miracle this morning because we were on our way and we were getting pretty close to the center here, but we were down to our final maybe 10, 13 minutes or so, and we hit a huge traffic jam, a parking lot traffic jam, bumper to bumper, that probably would have landed us here at maybe 10:30 or 11, and here we are at 9:15, talking on time. How did the car transport over the top of the traffic jam? We're on the highway, it's nothing but parking lot in front of us and everything. We saw some cars backing up and reversing, and who had just entered onto the highway from the entrance ramp and reversing to try to do something. And I said, turn, we need to turn here. We need to turn up the entrance ramp of the highway to make it. And I didn't say those words, but turn here. It was just a very simple instruction, and off we went, and my gosh, even had time to get our tea and be here and everything, and spend this lovely time with you instead of meeting you much later. So that was an example of just following present guidance and not being locked into even the rules of the world. I don't know about down here, but that's not a maneuver you're supposed to try. You don't go... I'm glad to hear that. You have some intuitive taxi drivers too. That's wonderful. Okay, very good. Well, yes, we fit in already. We're fitting into the culture down here. We've been baptized in the culture. It's wonderful. So I think I'll just make a brief kind of introduction, and Francis can as well, and then we'll kind of get into really what's on your heart and where your experience is at, because we're not trying to talk words that are over the top of your experience or over the top of your awareness, but if there are things that you can see that's a part of your consciousness that doesn't feel real natural, feels unnatural, like a thorn, or like a splinter, like in the Matrix, like a splinter in your mind driving you mad. Let's join together today to exposing and releasing the splinter. Because none of us needs to suffer, none of us seems to need to have struggles, or there's our happy little... Oh, that's so sweet. This is so fun to have a mascot for the gathering today. He's up for something. If we can join together in seeing the nothingness of the splinter, then that will definitely take us into an experience of happiness, because it's only the splinter in your mind driving you mad that Morpheus talks about in the Matrix, that is so obscure that if it wasn't so obscure we would certainly have flicked beyond the splinter before this. And what we want to do is really go into that so deeply, so that if there is any aspect of that splinter in your mind, we're going to perform an extraction today. We're going to extract the splinter. That's the splinter behind every issue in this world. And the metaphysics, some of you know from A Course in Miracles, are that Jesus teaches us into eternity where all is one. There crept a tiny mad idea, that's the splinter, in which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. The fall from grace, the fall from heaven, the fall from oneness is a splinter of an idea. And if you give your mighty, powerful mind to the splinter, then you seem to face the effects of believing in the splinter. And Jesus tells us in the Course, you made the ego by believing in it. And you can dispel it by withdrawing your belief from it. So we're simply going to work at taking our powerful mind energy and withdrawing it from the ego belief system. That means the splinter is ambition, the splinter is competition, the splinter is even growth. The splinter goes by many names. The splinter is more. The splinter is more. What I mean by that is, Jesus teaches us, what is an idol? Do you think you know? An idol is for more of something. It does not matter more of what. So this splinter is very sneaky and ingenious, because this is the belief that's behind this entire cosmos, more. If only I had more. More love, more money, more intimacy, more possessions, more honesty, more integrity. It will even use the more idea and say that you don't have it now, even on the spiritual journey, but in the future you'll have more peace. In the future you'll have more love, more abundance, prosperity, whatever. More freedom in the future. That's the name of the Mandela movie, Long Road to Freedom. And the reason it's a long road to freedom is the sneaky splinter is pushing it off into the future. And you'll never find it in the future. We have to realize that even linear time, something that's so assumed to be real, is part of the splinter as well. That we've been hoodwinked, that we've fallen asleep and we're dreaming a dream of separation, a dream where there's inequality, a dream where there's duality, a dream of opposites that really has nothing to do with our real nature at all. It's a fundamental error, it's a fundamental splinter, and it has already been corrected, but you have to accept the correction. That's what the Christians will call salvation. You know, salvation is very important, but you have to realize even with salvation the splinter is pretty tricky. It will put it off into saving people, trying to save people, save lives. Even evangelism, which is something I certainly grew up with. We had evangelists in the United States like Billy Graham, going all over the world and evangelizing in the name of Jesus for a kingdom of heaven. And the purpose behind it is good, but the idea that we have to convert people, and we have to convert enough people over to Jesus in order to reach that state, that still puts a pressure. Puts a pressure on Christians. Have I done enough? Have I saved enough souls? If you're a minister or an evangelist, you know, quantity still seems to be important. How many believers, how many are saved? And I was raised in Christianity, so I know it from the inside, so to speak, and I had issues with certain parts of Christianity or the Bible, but I think I was only bothered by contradictions. I'm not big into oxymorons, contradictions of term. If God is love, then God is love, but let's not have an angry, vengeful God and a God of love. That's a contradiction to me. If we're going to forgive, then let's forgive. But forgive is to let bygones be bygones. It's to let go of the past. It's not a piecemeal kind of thing. What good will it do if I forgive certain ones and I don't forgive others. You know, have I really forgiven? If I still hold grievances and judgments against anybody, I must be not aware of the true nature of forgiveness. Because forgiveness would offer release and happiness and joy, and if I'm not feeling that, then partial forgiveness, we're starting to realize, partial forgiveness, partial healing isn't going to do it for us. We have to have total forgiveness. I call that enlightenment. I call that self-realization, knowing yourself as you really are, as God created you. So, just like you can't be partially pregnant, what does that mean? Imagine if somebody, are you pregnant or not? Partially. What's that mean? Yes or no? Yes or no? Are you healed or not? If you're healed, the whole universe is healed with you. It has to be so. It can't be that God set up kind of system where some are healed and some are suffering. Some make it back. The chosen ones make it back, and the rest, oh, they languish in hell. Not so. If you experience total happiness, the whole world is happy with you, because your perception has shifted. You're not looking through a darkened glass anymore. You actually see with vision. You don't perceive abuse because you don't believe in abuse anymore. You don't perceive neglect because you don't believe in neglect. You don't perceive enslavement because you don't believe in enslavement. Why would God create enslavement? That doesn't make any sense, that an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God would create enslavement. So, you've come upon a gathering here today where I've heard for centuries that there's these debates about free will versus determinism. I've heard there's these debates about evil, the existence of evil. Yeah, we're going to dispel evil today. I hope you'll be a part of it with me. I hope you'll go inside and not have to continue wrestling with such nonsense. We lead a transcendent life, a life of tremendous joy, and we have joined with Christ, and we have dominion over the world. So the sunny day is a rainy day, it's all the same to me. I can enjoy the water coming out of the gutter, and the pretty gray skies. Like the ones when I first went to Beijing, China, it was all gray during the day. It wasn't raining. They were trying to tell me it was smog. We're saying it's thick smog. I said, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's a state of mind. There's nothing wrong with perception when we don't judge the world. It's when we judge the world, when we look to find problems in the world where there aren't any, that's pretty insane. So this world is backwards and upside down. You can't judge your advances from your retreats. Everyone who's sleeping and dreaming in this world needs a lot of help to wake up, and yet it's given. There's a lot of help given. And our spirit the love is so generous. It's so generous. It bestows everything we need, moment by moment by moment. And so I'm just really honored to be here with you and to share the depth of the wisdom of this. And also, we're doing this for the whole universe. Today's gathering is for the entire universe, because as we go in, when doubt thoughts arise or questions arise, we're going to welcome everything to come and arise in awareness, and we're going to just be prayerful. We're going to listen to the Spirit's answer to any doubt thought we have, any challenge, anything, any bit of disbelief that's part of this splinter. Let's give that full permission to come up in our minds. We have to be able to ask those questions. We have to be able to express our frustrations. We can't bottle this splinter up. That's not going to solve anything by bottling it up. We have to allow it fully. So again, like last night, every question, any topic, ask us anything about our lives. How do you deal with this? What do you do with food and nutrition, or sexuality, or money and possessions, investments, on and on and on and on. Any topic you want to raise about sickness, about the ecology, about the seeming politics, anything, any topic you want to raise. We are happy to address that from the perspective of forgiveness, because it helps us all. We need to have this be an experience. It can't be just a bunch of words. We're not asking you to just buy a theology and sign on the dotted line and say, okay, I'll go for that theology. And we're not even asking for you to say, sounds pretty good. Sentimentally, I agree with you. Sentimentally, I'm with you. But practically, in my life, where I exist in my world, here's what I'm facing on a daily basis. Good. We want you to bring that up as well. Because this experience is not a theory. We're not speaking of a theory here. We're speaking of an actual experience. And I would say it's our natural birthright. We were created as love, and we are to experience ourselves as loving. And I haven't had an argument or a debate or a disagreement for many, many years. So don't be concerned that you'll offend me with whatever you're going to bring up. I'm not offended. I am not a debater. I wouldn't do very well on any of those debates that they have on TV. Creationism versus Darwinism. If they had me on that one, well, it would be a whole different view on that one. I am not a debater or an arguer, and I don't experience problems. So I love to come together with people and groups of people, because my experience is there are no problems, and then when people present problems, I'll say, let's just look at this together real closely and just see for ourselves. Let's join together and see if it's really a problem. It's much easier to live a happy life if you actually see there are no problems, because then the happiness is natural. You're not trying to put on a happy face or, you know, put on a mask or pretend things are happy. If they're not really happy, then I think you should be entitled to talk about what's going on. What is it that you're struggling with? Bring it up. We welcome those questions. And Francis is here. It's so much fun traveling with Francis. We've known each other for a number of years. Now it feels like we know each other in the depths of our souls, intimately as the same self. It's the way it's gotten. It's not like knowing another person, or even knowing memories, exchanging memories, but it's so delightful. It's such an honor too to have shared this purpose so much, so that we just come and we are one. We live and move as one, and we are loving it. And we've gone around the planet a number of times, and that's been very guided. And here we are again. We find ourselves in South Africa sharing with you. Really, it's kind of transcendent feeling. It's beyond that, but it's so friendly. There's a friendliness with this connection with Spirit. There's a respectfulness. There's an honesty with it, and I feel like it's life-changing. And so it's just an honor to be here with you and share this with everyone.
Thank you, David, and thank you everyone for inviting us down here to South Africa. It's just, yes, like David was saying, it's such an honor to just do what Spirit is guiding us, because we have to give us the experience. We have to give the Spirit a chance to actually convince us the only happiness we can feel in this world is doing what the Spirit is guiding us. And that is, not giving ourselves this opportunity to really walk this life in that way. We can never really get convinced just by hearing other people talk about it, or just in theory or sentimentally thinking, yeah, that's a nice idea. But I still think money will make me happy, or an intimate relationship. If only I can have a healthier body, if I can only have this and that, then I will be happier. But just for us, it's such a walk of life of trust. And to say, we don't know what can bring us happiness. We've tried with everything. And now, you're in charge. And we're very, very obedient to the guidance that's coming through. And we're not there to doubt, to judge, to question the guidance. we're just there to be moved through by the Spirit. Actually, it started to, that from the beginning it seems to be, I will step back and let him lead the way. I will accept the second place to have the first. But that is just for the ego to allow the ego to step outside of the planning role and the controller role. But in this experience is actually not something the ego consider as belittled, or it's actually a very empowered experience with the Holy Spirit. We feel this merge with the identity of the Holy Spirit, and only in that we feel the true humility and true humbleness, and at the same time this certainty and this strength of the Spirit. So yes, I just feel like there is nothing more that I can ever desire than just allow the Spirit to move through one step at a time, and not really feeling interested to know about the future, or even to go back to the past to think what have happened or what could have happened. You know, there is just no interest in that anymore. The mind is very, very quiet, and it's very, very still, and is open to be moved through, and is open to full communication. We talk about this a lot, like in our daily lives, this body is really used for full communication, seemingly with other bodies, but it's really the mind is so transparent. It has no interest in holding back or protecting any thoughts or any self-image or self-concept or story or trying to be right of any kind anymore. So the mind is actually completely transparent, and it is in this place of just give as I'm receiving fully. And in that way, the mind is still, it's relaxed, it's restful, and it's peaceful, it's trusting. That is the state of mind that we're sharing, and that's the state of mind we really want to share with all of you as well. Just to share our experience that there is a way to reach this peace of mind. It's not through trying to solve any problem in your life or in the world, and yet that is the inroad. As David was saying, please bring up anything that's in your heart, that's a concern in your mind, that either is a metaphysical question that you really want to communicate with the Holy Spirit, or is anything that is in your life you just really want to answer. Because trust me, there is no personal questions. There is no questions about your life or your personal self that is not related to the state of mind. So that's really what we're here for. There is a peace, there is a state of mind we can all tap into, and it's actually very simple. So we're here just to allow that, any question and any concern to come to the surface, so that we can all drive it deeper to the real source, the real problem. So I guess we'll just open it up and see anybody who wants to raise any questions. We just allow that to come.
I do want to mention, since Charles was mentioning, it seems almost like he was saying from last night that I'm kind of anti-ambitious. Actually, and I said I'm pro-peace, because it's just, peace is my experience, but you'll find with everything in this world that there's an opposite. So what would be the opposite of ambitious would be lazy. I'm not pro-laziness, I'm not promoting laziness, and so in that sense I'm not anti-anything, because it's just a state of mind. I rejoice with everyone I meet, all these brothers and sisters in 38 countries and 6 continents. I have many friends, I do many collaborations. We were just talking about a collaboration right before this started, because the book Healing Unwind Your Mind Back to God is not down here in Durban. I said, oh, okay, we'll just talk at the break, and I'm telling we put these up on the internet, I'm telling my distribution and publishing manager, what's your name? Leslie. He wants some books down here in South Africa, so you'll be getting an email from him or something to collaborate. We were just up in Johannesburg, and we're traveling through 11-country tour, and 2 different continents, and one's fall and winter and one's summer, so we packed our little medium suitcases well we could. We brought some supplies along, but they went pretty quick. In Cape Town, there was a few in Johannesburg. So we just did the print on demand. We said, well, okay, what's it going to take to print up 25 or 30 or 50 books or whatever? Oh, we can do this, but it's not a large quantity. Here's the cost and this. And they said in the end, we can put it here, put a suggested donation for this, but you're not going to make any money. Not interested in making money. I'm not interested in making money. I have to tell that in this world. It's such a shocking thing people don't hear. I'm not interested in making money. We're interested in truth. We're interested in peace of mind. We're interested in extending. So they worked it out where they could sell them for the price that it cost to make them. Great! In fact, we had some people back who are part of our publishing that said, you can't, you probably aren't going to want to print them if, there's nothing will come in from them. I said, if we could cover the costs, that's everything. I didn't come here to make money, even a cent on anything. We're here because the Spirit guided us here, and we're here to extend the message in these types of gatherings, and then when people leave and they want to take something with them, if they don't have access to the internet, and maybe they like a book in their hand to put in their purse or their knapsack, we try to accommodate things. But the motive of things is I would say that there's a mind training that's involved, and it takes us away from ego ambitions. It takes us into a state of contentment, of peace. We all know that. We love to just kick back and watch the sunrise or the sunset, or even during our downtimes and vacation times. We just like to be. We're human beings. Can we have not more of the being part and less of the challenge and striving and struggling part? I say yes. I say that we are beings. We're spiritual beings, and we can loosen our mind from this grip of guilt that drives us, this grip of unworthiness that pushes us to prove our worth. But nothing you can think or do or say or make can establish your worth. Your worth was established by God. You are created perfect. And anything you try to do to improve upon that perfection is like spinning your wheels in the mud. And it took me quite a while to realize that. I was quite ambitious. 10 years of university and undergraduate and graduate and lots of jobs, and my career beliefs, my career ideas got hijacked by Jesus heavily. Jesus said, sorry, I'm taking that away. Not in this lifetime. You're not going to have a career. I've got something more important to extend and radiate to the world than you having a career. Because careers are for houses and families and building and establishing, and Jesus basically told me, you've done that. You've done that for lifetimes. Are you ready to join me in heaven now? What's the whole point? What's the point of the rat race? What's the point of always comparing and trying to get ahead of people and, always be better than somebody or have more? You don't have to play that game anymore. Salvation is a happy game. We're actually in the middle of a happy game. For us, what seems to be travel and gatherings and everything, airports, searches, security gates, security locks. There's a lot of security down here, but it's not really different. I find that in a lot of countries, Argentina and a lot of countries that I've traveled around, but it's an inner security is what we want. We want peace of mind, we want certainty and security that's in our heart, that radiates from inside of us, so we don't have to try to achieve security with external means. When there really are no external means, we have to learn to see we've been searching in the world, searching in the wrong place. From the worldly horizontal perspective, security seems really important. That's why we have security locks, security companies, security gates, lock everything up. Some of you might know there's a singer in the United States called Barbra Streisand. Years ago, Barbra Streisand was in a movie called Funny Girl. And she sang a song, I got plenty of nothing, and nothing's plenty for me. I got the sun, I got the moon, I got the deep blue sea. Folks with plenty of plenty, they got a lock on their door, afraid somebody's gonna rob 'em now that they're making more. What for? I've got no lock on my door, that's the way to be. They can steal the rug from my floor. That's okay with me, 'cause the things that I prize, like the stars in the skies, they're all free. A pretty good song.
You missed your vacation.
Yeah, it's a pretty good song. It's a pretty good song.
We just sounded very Frans, this was on the guitar.
That hasn't come yet, but we'll see. It came quickly to Kirsten in about a year. Actually, I'm really big on free and freedom. But I learned from Jesus in the Course, he said, what do you want? Freedom of the body or freedom of the mind? For both you cannot have. Wow, that's a major line from the Master. Because when I looked at it, I spent a lot of years going for freedom of the body. Why do I need a career? Why do I need so much money? It's the belief that there's freedom of the body and more choices is better. Isn't that part of what we believed growing up? The more money you have, the more assets you have, the more freedom you have. Not so. Freedom is a state of mind. And Nelson Mandela and Gandhi did a pretty good job of starting to teach us to move in that direction. Because if you can feel a sense of freedom, a feeling of freedom when your body's in a prison, you know you're opening up to freedom of the mind. Because you're not limited by the environment, the body, or the environment that's around the body. That's huge, to start to move in that direction. That's amazing. And that's pretty much what we've done in the sense of we've been guided to let go of our pursuit of concepts and our striving for concepts in this world. It's been, in one sense for me, you know, it's like when we were driving on the highway today, we saw the traffic jam, we did a loop-to-loop and we took the entrance ramp to get out of there. That's kind of the way it went for me in my life when I was in university and still hadn't really got into, you know, looking into a career, and I just kind of found a little loop exit and got out of the rat race. I got out of bigger, better, faster, more, trying to achieve, trying to accomplish, trying to make a name for myself, trying to carve out a niche and all that. I kind of got out of it. What I like about Frances's life is that she got in it. She got into the traffic jam. She got right into with owning her own business and a couple houses and a husband and all of the concepts that are part of the false identity of this world, where you actually go for them and then you acquire them and then people around you go, very good, bravo, very good, you've done really well. She got into the traffic jam. Whereas I kind of got the loop and took the entrance ramp out of there pretty quick. She got into the traffic jam and then she met me and she's in the traffic jam, the car idling and the exhaust and everything, and she's like, I'm getting out of this traffic jam. And I think these friendly people here would like to know how you did that. How did you go right into the middle of having your own business and a husband and a couple houses and all that education and scholarship and all, you know, you did all got all the high marks, tick, 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 tick. You kind of followed the ego's plan to happiness, and I guess you were disillusioned when it didn't pan out that way. You found yourself in the traffic jam going, did I buy a bill of goods or what? Still not happy. But I think these people would like to know, how did you get out of that traffic jam?
Thank you. It was going to be my question, because the advice on that level is going to be welcome, because I think at the end of the day, you're still in and of the world. You still have to partake in whatever's happening in your world. Whether you're running a business, whether you're working for a company or a boss, whatever it might be, you've You've still got to generate an income. You've still got to make decisions at that level where you have to provide for a family, etc., etc. And I think most of us are in that state where.
I told you.
Where do we go?
This is the way it works. We get to the questions before they can be asked.
Yeah, I mean, I love to share. I just want to also say that looking back, I have to say it's every single step is very much guided. But the desire was definitely to be happy and to be healed, because there was a lot of psychological pain or dissatisfaction with my life, and also manifested as a physical pain, and not really having any solution or diagnosis even. There's no problem, but you're just not feeling well, physically or emotionally or psychologically, just not feeling well. And with the future all laid in front of me, just feeling I've seen the end. It's boring, and it's good but boring, and there is nothing really to strive for. So that's where I guess it started for me to really want to know. And that's, I was brought up as an atheist. I didn't really know there was anything else than success and strive for anything in this world. So when spirituality came to my life, it was a huge opening. At first, it was emotional opening up. I could feel this resonance with the Course, and I would cry with the words, even though I don't really fully understand the Holy Spirit and the vocabulary. There's something deeper in my heart. Just cry out for this communion, this connection. And the first step I mentioned a little bit was the Spirit guiding me to start my own Course in Miracle group, but more as a way for me to step out of my little life, to start to connect with more people, and started to really embrace the Course. And all I knew how to do it was to talk about the book conceptually and intellectually, because that's where my experience was at, very little experience. And when I met David, actually at the point I was quite disillusioned. I remember I was taking a walk in a park in Sydney, Australia, and I was thinking, what am I here for? Where do I need to go? Do I need to go to which country? Just tell me. I don't understand why I need to be here. And then I heard this loud voice coming from the sky, just saying, stay here. I have something big for you here. Wait. Be patient and wait. And I thought, wow, okay, I'll wait. That just settled every question in my mind at the point. And I just started to just get on with my life. But in my heart, I always knew that I'm here for a purpose. I don't know what. It hasn't unfolded. But I'm here to wait very patiently. So when I met David, went to a week-long retreat, and I had this amazing, profound experience, just huge heart opening, but also was the first time I experienced that the love of God is real. It's not really something that I hope for, or it's in a concept of book I need to study and then learn from. So that experience just made me feel I just want to fly with people who just feel free in this world. I want to know how to live like that, and I want to fly with the Spirit. And I remember someone just asked me at the point, he said, what does it take? Or what's stopping you? What's stopping you from just flying with the Spirit, be free? I said, I have a husband, I have a business, and I have a house. That's what's stopping me. And then he just asked, so what do you think you can do? I said, I'm going to let go of my husband, my business, and my house. And he said, oh wow, sometimes people mention one of it, you just mentioned it all in one sentence. But that's the desire. It's not really that feeling I have to let them go, but more a feeling I have to go towards my calling. And if I go towards my calling, meaning I can't take them with me, then I have to allow that to be put aside temporarily. And then I have to see what it means and what my mind will, experience. I can't be happy in a relationship and, just living a compromised life, knowing both of us are not happy. So that's what I did. I just felt like I'm going to close down my business. I did that. And I told my husband I'm going to go to no private thoughts, no people pleasing, just free. I really want to be free too in my mind. I want to find freedom in my mind. So I went there and eventually went through the divorce process and sold my house and also gave away all my possessions away. And it wasn't really because I thought it's a right thing to do in form to achieve a personal enlightenment. That's not really the purpose to do all of these things. It's more like because it's guided. Every time when I reach a point, there's a huge calling to move forward and let go of certain things that don't serve anymore and seems to drag me back at that point. So that was really what I want to say. All these steps that I did was because it was guided, and it was for an experience for the mind to see that I have never let go of anything. It was at the point seen as something was let go of in my experience when I was very heavily identified with this body, and possession, meaning this body claimed the ownership of something external. That's very, very heavy in my mind. And there was no way I can break free from this kind of belief by myself. Just by some people say, it's not about the form, it's about the mind. Change your mind. Yes, right, it is all about changing the mind. I didn't know how to do that authentically. Sitting there saying, I'm going to change my mind. I don't own anything. I'm not a body, I'm free. I couldn't do that. And yet Spirit has a way, because this is not outside of the mind. This is the mind too. The beliefs in the mind is reflected back by the world. I believe in possession because I believe I'm a body. So the world reflect back. You believe these things are owned by you, and by letting them go, you're gonna lose. You know, all these beliefs of loss are very, very heavy in the mind. So when the Spirit was guiding me step by step, seemingly letting go of the things in the world, what is really happening is the mind starting to let go of the beliefs of ownership and possession, and eventually set free of this identity of being a body. And there can be any loss, you know. So that's really what I want to say, is like a full circle, starting from this small identity, owning something and trembling inside, fearing of losing, to, okay, let go, and let go, and yet the mind is opening up. In the end, it's a full circle for the mind to see that you have never let go of anything, because you never owned anything, because the one you think who you are is not really the self. And the only thing that truly is let go of is this belief in loss, is this belief in suffering. That's the only thing that's been let go of. And yet, you know, with all these things being let go of, I gained everything. The freedom in the mind is gained through all these steps. So now when a lot of people are asking me what to do, should I leave, should I stay, I would say don't think you are the controller. That's the main question. Even with this question about the form, should I stay, should I go, is what do I need to do? I need to plan, I need to be in control for my awakening. But the truth is, relax and hear all these experiences and all these parables is just to say there is someone that can guide you. If you allow yourself to be guided, if you allow yourself to see everything are just symbols, and the Holy Spirit will use all the symbols and will help you to lay aside certain symbols. If it is more helpful for your mind to open up, then trust that and keep moving forward, because you do want an experience of nothing can ever be lost. That's the experience that you will have if you follow the Spirit. And the Spirit can seem to be radical to the ego's judgment when things can be laid aside, when the ego thinks they're valuable. But in the end, it's just an outgrowing experience. The mind starts to open up. Certain symbols are not really seen as valuable anymore. So the mind is outgrowing its own old concept. It's letting go of the old concept. That's really what's happening. So, you know, this is seemingly my story in form, but there is such a deep, profound experience that's happening in the mind that people don't really see from the form. It's this huge opening up in experience and huge trust with the Spirit by allowing the Spirit to come to my life, and by me giving over the life to Him every step of the way. So that's the true getting out of the traffic jam experience.
Yeah, I think the thing that touched me about this whole thing was, I remember when I was reading the teacher's manual of A Course in Miracles, and Jesus says there's 10 characteristics of a teacher of God. And it starts with trust. The first one's trust, and all the rest follow from trust. So when trust goes, the rest go as well. Trusting in the Spirit is everything. And then the honesty and so on and so forth, open-mindedness and patience, and everything is coming from that trust. But I believe it's number 7. What is number 7? What is the 7th characteristic of a teacher of God? Generosity. There's a good sound to generosity. We always feel the joy of generosity. If someone's generous with us, we feel it. We know it when someone's with us, in front of us, that they're generous. And so I was curious to find out what Jesus had to say about generosity. And he had some startling things to say about generosity, because I think, in my mind, I had some definitions coming in of what was generous, and Jesus had some very different ideas to David about what generosity was. I would think, back in those days, pre-course, back in BC, before course days, I would associate generosity with money. The philanthropists, the ones that had given tens of thousands of dollars, or we'll say millions of dollars, to charity or to fight disease, to fight cancer or heart disease, or given it towards alleviating poverty or alleviating hunger. And let's say people have given, we'll say, millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars to alleviate these problems. I think that's kind of generous. I would think that's kind of generous. David thought that was generous. But Jesus says in number 7, he says, no, generosity is actually the opposite of what generosity means in this world. And I think I had a pretty standard definition of generosity, of what most people have in this world. And Jesus says, no, it's not that. And it's actually the opposite of that. When he uses words like that, I'm like, could I be that far off? Opposite? I mean, come on, give me a chance. I mean, helping alleviate problems in the world and giving money to good causes, charities, opposite? What's that? He says, the teacher of God does not want anything that he cannot give away. What would he want it for? It's more that you have this quality in your heart, you have this love in your heart. And a lot of us have met people that are reflections of that. My grandmother was a good reflection of that for me. She hardly ever had money. She really wasn't a philanthropist. She was, she was very open-hearted and generous, and she would seem to give whatever she had. She really couldn't really save anything, because as far as saving money, because she was so extending of it, that she never had the time to build it up to give it away. It was so in the moment for her. When she was younger, she would open up her home, and people, her nieces and nephews, would come when they had difficulties with their parents. They would come to stay with her, because she was non-judgmental. She would just love them, take them into her house and just love them. Hug them and love them, and say, stay as long as you want. And I kind of laugh when I hear her stories of, all these nieces and nephews living in her house, because she was so open-hearted that she just was pulling people in. I mean, how can I help? What can I do? They would want to talk about their stuff. But a teacher of God does not want anything that he cannot give away. Now when you share money, or you share a physical possession, let's say money, a bank account, a house, a car, typical things people share in marriages. When you share a physical possession, Jesus says, you divide its ownership. If I had $1 million and I gave you half, if I gave you 500,000, then I would have 500,000 and you would have 500,000, and we would divide the ownership of that $1 million. We'd each have half. So we'd each have less. I would be giving you money, and I would have less, and you would have more than you had. But we would both have less than $1 million. It's the same with the house. If I have a house, and I say, I'll put you on the deed. So now we share the house. We'll divide its ownership. You see how sharing and extending in monetary and physical ways, actually you divide the ownership. You actually, when you share it, you have less of it. You have less of it. You divide its ownership. Jesus says that's not how it works in heaven. It's not how it works in heaven. When you give miraculously through the miracle, the giver and the receiver have more. Both. The giver and the receiver. Not the giver has less and the receiver has more, but the giver and the receiver. Whoa, you're going to have to teach me what that is, because that ain't nothing like on planet Earth. 10 years of university, I studied economics and supply and demand and supply side economics, and I learned all the ways of the world. I could have gone on any kind of career I wanted, or after 10 years of university, there was lots of options to, people were telling me, you'd be really good in this and good in this, but I need help to see with the miracle where the giver and the receiver are both blessed and both have a sense of have more by giving. When you share an idea, you strengthen the idea, Jesus said. I strengthen the idea. By sharing ideas, I strengthen them. Okay, how do I do that? Well, you have to be a miracle worker. I'm going to speak through you. I'm going to shine through you, laugh through you, hug through you. I'm going to extend ideas, and as you allow me to extend ideas through you, you will strengthen them in awareness. If you become habitually miracle-minded, if you let me extend ideas through you, you'll be stronger in those ideas. And these ideas are very different from this world. Nothing we learned from mom and dad. Or maybe we did get a few ideas that were pretty, revelatory from mom and dad. I don't know your experience, but this is how it works. So what Jesus is saying, the teacher of God does not want anything that he cannot give away. What would he want it for? He could only lose because of it. To the extent that you can possess anything in this world, possess money, possess a partner, possess children, possess a house, possess a bank account, to the extent that you believe in possession, you are limiting your mind, because God didn't create possession. That's an egoic belief. And to the extent that you believe in it and live by it and keep extending these possession ideas, you strengthen the possession ideas in your mind. And to the extent that you open to the miracle, Jesus had a lot of different ideas than we saw on this planet. Like, freely you have received, now freely give. That's why I'm not into making money. Because what would I want it for? What good is a bunch of money going to do me, really? You can't take it with you. You don't get into heaven and say, oh, I've got good securities and good mutual funds and bonds, and you don't think that's going to get you in the pearly gates with your investment portfolio. Oh, it seems really practical in this world, but I'll tell you one thing, you're going to have to drop it when you come to the gates. You ain't even getting close to the gates with the idea of possession. Mine, like little children say, mine. When they first say that, we go, oh, it's so cute. No, it's not really cute. It's never been cute, and it could get you killed in the future if you stick with that my mentality. You'll be facing it.
David, surely there's nothing wrong with possessions, it's only the attachment to them.
Actually, the very idea is a killer. So what I discovered was, like competition, is that an idea that God created? No. Is possession an idea that God created? No. If you seem to have possessions in this world, of course you need a lot of help, because again, you can't experience peace of mind and this possession belief. But I think your question is a good one in the sense that we need to get into form and content, which is really important. That's what the Course is really good at. There was a guy named Leo Tolstoy, a writer in Russia, who was influenced by Gandhi, and he was a pretty successful writer and everything, and he felt so guilty about his possessions, that he had more than the peasants, that he gave away all his possessions, all his material possessions, and he still felt guilty. It didn't work. That was what Francis was saying. It wasn't so much divorcing and letting go of a house or houses and letting go of a job. That doesn't do anything. Some people almost think somehow on the spiritual journey that they'll be enlightened if they just dispossess in the physical sense. You just give away all the stuff in form, but it's the mind that's in slavery. So his mind was still in the belief of possession. He just physically gave them all away, and he still felt miserable. So I'm certainly not advocating to people to do anything at all in form unless you are guided to do it, and guided by the Spirit, which is trying to help you not linger in time, help you release your mind from this timeline thing and take you back to eternity. In the end, I know there's a lot of teachings on the Course that talk about live a normal life and so on and so forth. It will only get you to an intellectual understanding of the Course unless you actually follow and do what the author of the Course is asking you to do all the way. Because I mentioned that last night. Jesus says, you'll believe this Course entirely or not at all. And Francis's parable is great. She started off with the Course, reading it, started a study group, and started teaching it intellectually and conceptually. And of course that's an inroad. We got to start somewhere, and that's a really good place to start. It's just that it doesn't ultimately, if you start to get a distinction in your mind from the Holy Spirit about the valuable versus the valueless, which is lesson 133, I will not value what is valueless. If you start to get a clearer distinction from the Holy Spirit and Jesus, what's valuable and what's valueless, then ultimately, what's the next step that comes after you're able to discern between what's valuable and valueless? What would be the next obvious step? To let go of the valueless. Well, you want to just keep it? Why would you? If Jesus said, this has no value whatsoever, it's like, okay, I got it. Can I keep it? No, it's valueless. That's the point. You ultimately, for the experience of the kingdom of heaven, obviously, it wouldn't be a sacrifice to let go. If he showed you that it wasn't valuable, why would you keep it? Why would you keep sickness, pain, suffering? Why would we keep anything? Nobody would live with pain if they saw that it had no value in their life. But if it's still attractive, if it still covers something, that's the attachment right there. It's in the mind. So, and then I love that, speaking of lesson 133, I adore that lesson because, you know, I always want Jesus to, I keep saying to Jesus, give it to me straight. Come on, don't sugarcoat it, don't dilute it, just give it to me straight. I can handle it, give it to me straight. So in lesson 133, he gives the criteria for what's valuable and valueless. When you're waking up from illusions, it's kind of helpful to have some criteria from what's valuable and valueless. Just tell me what's valuable and valueless, and I'll follow you. I really want peace of mind. I'm serious about being free and happy and joyful. So if you tell me what's valuable, and you tell me what's valueless, I'll do it. You just give it. We got the red pill and the blue pill. And the red pill takes you down the rabbit hole, like Morpheus said, and I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And the blue pill is you wake up in your bed and you just believe whatever you believe. You just go back into illusions and go along your way and just try to do the best you can with illusions. But if you take that red pill, so I said, okay, what is it? So in lesson 133, Jesus says, here's your criteria for what's valuable and valueless. If it will not last forever, it has no value whatsoever. So I'm thinking, that's the first. Okay, there's got to be something more than that. Now that's the criteria. That's the whole criteria. That's his criteria. If it will not last forever, it has no value whatsoever. Oh my God. I said don't hold back, but my gosh, you've got to have a few other ones in there too. There's like a stepping stone to that? No. If it will not last forever, it has no value whatsoever. No wonder my philanthropy ideas were a little bit off. Because philanthropy is almost like work hard, build up your nest egg, build up millions, and then give them away to the poor, to the disadvantaged, to the less fortunate. And Jesus is like, yeah, your perception is twisted if you think that there are disadvantaged and less fortunate, and then there are all the ones, the haves and the have-nots. He's saying, you've got some don't have. Or some are happy and some are sad. He's saying it's a distortion. Your whole world that you perceive is very distorted. And that's why the philanthropist is not truly generous, in the sense that if it will not last forever, it has no value whatsoever. I was like, I get the sense that you're saying, Jesus, that money is nothing. And actually in his psychotherapy pamphlet, he wrote A Course in Miracles, he dictated Song of Prayer and a psychotherapy pamphlet too. And in the psychotherapy pamphlet, he's got a sentence where he says, money is nothing. He comes right out. He just doesn't pull any punches. He just comes right out with it. Now, if you're on planet Earth and you believe that money has some value, then what you're going to have to do is see that money is a symbol, and the body is a symbol, and this yoga center is a symbol, and the trees are symbols, and the ocean's a symbol, and this and this. You're going to have to realize that you have to let the Spirit direct the way and use the symbols to take your mind to that pristine state of mind where you see that they're just symbols. But if you believe they're actualities, then there's going to be guilt with it. And I think when we start talking about physical health, when we start talking about sexuality, when we start talking about money, those topics and those symbols are highly charged. I mean, is there anybody here in the room that hasn't felt guilt around physical symptoms? You go into spirituality and you start to learn you need to choose to live healthy, you have to live healthy. And then when you get sick, seem to get sick, and the body gets symptoms, does anybody feel any guilt with that? What about money? Has anybody felt any guilt with robbing somebody, or the other end? What if you've stolen money from somebody? And you've got that in your mind. Like, we have a friend we just met in Cape Town, and he was telling me his life story and everything, and he basically said, I was a crook. I stole. Lots. It's big time kind of thing in Nigeria, and now he's into the Course, and he's like wanting salvation, Spirit doesn't hold anything against us, so what if we seem to be a crook? If you want redemption, if you want healing and happiness, you'll do what it takes to go through a transformation in your consciousness. Spirit's not holding anything against you, but you see, we have to get to a point which is that point of purpose, which is where there's a non-attachment in the mind, and not keep thinking that we as persons have to act out, find a way to be an unattached person. That's a heck of a job. When the person is the mask, and now you're going to try to wear an unattached mask. It's hard. It's hard to pretend to be spiritual.
David,
Yes.
are you able to tell us how to do that without going to the monastery or on a very big long retreat?
Well, we'll do that today, in the sense that when we share these ideas, we'll offer as many examples as we can, and we'll meet all the questions just on the point with as best that we can here. And then that's why we have books, that's why there's over 1,000 YouTube videos, that's why there's over 600 Spreaker audios, and it's as simple as downloading an app on your phone or your iPad, and anytime you want, clicking into it. Nowadays with smartphones, you can be almost anywhere, except way out in the rural areas, but anytime there's a cell phone tower, this or that, you can tap in. I have people that tell me they tap into videos, audios, and just for like 30 seconds, and they get the guidance from one of my talks. It's so available. If I've even got a Course in Miracles app, but we put hundreds, we put thousands of hours of these things online to come right into people's lives where they believe they are, right through their cell phones, right through their iPads. Right, if they don't like technology, we'll get a book. If they don't have a book, they come up and they say, how do we get your book? There's no books here in South Africa.
You need those things.
But are they possessions? If this is just like all the symbols in the cosmos, no different than a leaf or whatever, then that's the thing. I mean,
But it's that's again what I say. It's the attachment or the amount of service you give it that you think of its importance. If it's a means to an end, it's quite simple.
yeah, but even that, we don't understand how dark and confused we've been, because in this world we think the means come first and the end comes second, right? That if you're going to start a business, if you're going to start a family, if you're going to build a house or whatever, the means come first and the end comes second. It seems to take time to achieve the end, right? Jesus is like, your mind is so confused and so twisted that you believe the means come before the end, and the means and the end go together. The means and the end come together. That's what Francis was sharing last night. If there's a guidance for something, the means are given. You don't have to figure them out. Like, that's how twisted this is. That's why I'm saying it goes so deep in the mind, that it's not simple enough to just say, oh, this is just a phone, but I'm not going to be attached to my phone. Then we get to find out how attached or not attached to your phone when the phone is gone. Then we really get to see how non-attached the mind is when the phone's gone, or the car. The car that wouldn't start this morning. Charles got it this morning and was going to go pick his friends up and drive his car some distance to pick them up. The car wouldn't start. Just one small assumption going into the day, that the car would start. That could be a killer if you expect that car to start and that car doesn't start. Then it's like, what do? You see how deep it runs, because if you have the slightest assumption, let's say that you have an assumption that you'll have a bed to sleep in tonight. I had to go on a 5-year period from 1991 to 1996, and I never really knew what the day would bring, because I didn't have a house, an apartment, a condominium. I didn't have a tent. It was just at the very beginning. Somebody loaned me a tent for just one trip, but I didn't really know where the body of David would lay down at night. That'll build your trust. If you don't know where you're sleeping day to day, I talk about non-attachment, that'll build your trust. That'll build your trust. Because you have to see what's showing up. And it wasn't so much a matter of if I'd have a place to sleep, but it was more a matter of where would you have me go? Like going to a course group and having 3 people come up and say, you can come home with me and I'll offer you a place to sleep. But then which of the 3 do you take? Which one serves the plan in a greater way? You see, it's a different kind of thing. Instead of worrying about if the body will have a place to lay down, it's where would you have me be? So it's very, very subtle, and it takes, we can't emphasize how important it is to follow the guidance, and to the extent that you believe in possessions, you believe in control, you believe in competition, you believe in material gain and abundance, all these ego beliefs, that's going to bring an interference pattern for you to hear the Holy Spirit. Why should that be? It's because your mind would rather want these other things than to hear the voice for God. It would rather have these things. It would rather have possessions. It would rather have control. It would rather have personal power than to know the glory of the one Spirit, which is the power. You see, it's so subtle, but we have to go so deeply to unwind ourselves from our belief system. Now, Desiree is asking the question, can this be done without a long retreat? Can this be done without going to the monastery? And yeah, the monastery is up for sale. It's just a hunk of land out in Utah. It's not some kind of sacred thing where you make the pilgrimage, like instead of going to Mecca, you fly all the way from South Africa over there, and then you touch the holy ground, and you go, I've made it to Utah. It's for sale, for God's sake. I mean, I am not into possessions. I live with a group of people, and the first time, I came in one time, And I said to him, I said, well, you know what Jesus guided me to do? And they're like, what? And I said, sell all the properties. You should have seen the faces. Not Hawaii. I think we got an attachment there. All it takes is a resistance. In fact, they said, why are we selling the properties? I said, it's just the guidance. They said, but why are you selling the properties? I said, it's just the guidance. They said, so you want to sell the properties? I said, I don't know if they'll sell or not. I was guided to put the properties up for sale. That's all I'm doing. I'm just following the next step. Don't try to read any meaning into it. If you see how loose you got to be? You can't even, if you're guided to put something up, does that mean you're trying to sell it? No, that's adding a motive onto it. I'm into let all things be exactly as they are. I'm into total acceptance. I'm not into looking for outcomes. Even when people try to, I hear a guidance, people try to, I'm guided to come to South Africa. Why are you going to South Africa? What's down there? You're asking, why go to the monastery? What people are saying, why go to South Africa? I'm guided to go. Do you have a motive? Are you going down there? How many people you think you're going to reach down there? How many people you think are going to come to your gatherings? I don't know, and I don't care. I'm following the guidance.
Who are you answerable to here? Who's asking all these questions? Is it just
people? Yeah, people. Yeah, I can't believe all the questions that they got. What's your motive?
Just wondering if you answer, if you're taking guidance from a higher source. I agree with you, it's guidance. Why would you be answerable to anybody?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point of following guidance. But also, you don't answer to your husband or wife. Also, you don't answer to your children. Also, you don't answer to the government. Also, you don't answer to anything in time and space. You flow with what is given moment by moment. And you're very free in that, because you become highly intuitive. You become 100% intuitive. You're not going to react and respond to the images anymore. They can say what they may. Haven't we had to deal with that when we were growing up, and you talk about a partnership with somebody or everything, you go, you meet the parents.
Yeah.
It would be nice if it was just perfect love and acceptance, but sometimes it's like there's advice. You're going to marry this one, or you're going to, what are you doing with your life? You know, all this analyzing of motives seems to go on. And Jesus tells us it's dangerous to analyze the motives of others, he says in the Course, because it always involves the ego. And you don't want this ego, it's a death wish. So don't analyze the motives of others. What's that going to do to your career? What if you're a sales manager? What if you're a teacher or a principal at a high school? What's that going to do to your career if you're into cosmetics or you're into massage? What's that going to do to your career if you're a retreat center owner? And this and that. These expectations are wound into the construct. I have a friend down here in Johannesburg, and I just met him up in England. Now he's back in Johannesburg, but he was listening to one of my YouTubes, and in the YouTube somebody asked me the question, can somebody be a CEO of a company and be enlightened? I said, certainly not. But this guy was a CEO of a company here in Johannesburg, and he had a big reaction. He had all this anger that came up. He's watching these videos, and he's like going around to his staff sees that he's visibly disturbed by my answer that he saw on YouTube. And so they're finally saying, what's going on? And he's telling me, up in England, he said, I was watching YouTubes of this guy, David Hoffmeister. I spent all this money down here in South Africa to download these YouTubes and watch them. And I'm watching one of his YouTubes, and he said that a CEO couldn't be enlightened. And he said, I'm mad, I'm angry at this David Hoffmeister. And so then he tells his staff, and he actually tells this woman and everything, and she goes, oh, yeah, my sister's working with David Hoffmeister. He's in a company down in Johannesburg, South Africa, and he pours his heart out to somebody in his company, and that's the response he gets to saying, I'm angry at David Hoffmeister, is, oh, my sister's working with David Hoffmeister. she was promoting a conference I was in, and that he actually would be invited to speak at too. A Course in Miracles conference. He got invited to speak there too. He's a Course in Miracles teacher, and a psychic, and past life regression, and all kinds of other things too. So he's telling me the story in England, and he goes up, and on the same conference where I'm presenting, he goes up and he has a PowerPoint presentation where he starts off his first line, "I pretend to be a CEO." You see how the Spirit turns it around. It starts off angry at David Hoffmeister. Now he's doing a PowerPoint presentation. "I pretend to be a CEO. I pretend to have a job. I pretend to be a CEO." And he gets up there in front of everybody at the conference and he said, "But I'm the unhealed healer." He said, "Because I'm not truly peaceful consistently and happy, but I'm just taking my steps, and I'm using my interactions with all my people at my company, and I'm doing the work. I'm working with the Course in Miracles, and I'm doing what I can." And he gave his presentation. So the thing was, and what I say is you can't be enlightened when you hold on to self-concepts of this world. Enlightenment is knowing your Creator. Enlightenment is being one with the universe, one with God. And when we hold on to any self-concepts that would say that we're this or that, it could be anything, father, mother, sister, brother, it could be corporate, chief executive officer, or CFO, chief financial officer, or it could be a janitor, or a plumber, or a maintenance person, or it could be a teacher of mathematics, or a teacher of physics, or whatever. What did Buddha say? Buddha said, what did Jesus say? Jesus said, empty your mind of everything. He didn't say, partially empty your mind. He said, let go of everything. Hold on to nothing, he says in lesson 189. Lesson 189, simply do this, be still. Lay aside all thoughts of what you are, what God is. Gorgeous passage. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, or one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with holy empty hands unto your God. That's what he's calling us to. He's calling us into presence. He's calling us into purpose. And the egoic reactions are just a reaction saying, hey, I want to be enlightened and I want to keep the illusory world too. I want both. I want to have my cake and eat it too. That's what I mean about the attachments and possessions. We can't have our cake and eat it too if the way shower, if the way, the truth, and the life is saying, follow me. And he led a life of in his mind, non-possession. Was Jesus a Jew? He wouldn't identify with that. A Gentile? No. A Galilean? No. They would call him names. Some of them were quite negative. Some of them were Rabboni, or teacher, and so on and so forth. Was he identified with any of them? No. He wasn't.
When I first read this Book of Miracles, I was very confused and I put it away for a whole year because I didn't understand it. And I was thinking, when this lady first channeled this that was said to her, and I thought Jesus spoke Aramaic, and this came out very Shakespearean, and it was difficult to actually understand. Was it translated? Did he speak in Arabic and it was translated to this language that the Course of Miracles is written in?
No. He spoke Aramaic 2,000 years ago, and when he gave the shorthand dictation to Helen Schuckman, he gave it completely in English. But I think you're raising a beautiful question, so I'd like to address that fully, because people say, well, there's some pretty big words in there as far as vocabulary-wise. It's not like for the general population, because there's some 4-syllable words in there that people don't necessarily know. He dictated much of the book in Shakespearean blank verse. So there was he was using the field of psychology, the field of Christianity, the field of education, and he certainly was influenced by Shakespearean blank verse, because much of the book came through that way. The thing that a lot of people have difficulty with is he will speak in sentences, and sometimes he'll use double negatives. Lots of double negatives. And I've had people say to me, why would Jesus use so many double negatives? I mean, if he's got his choice of language and he's using the English language, why is he using the double negatives? To me, I see that he's so playful that you have to undo what never happened. Think of that a minute. Undo what never happened. That's like a double negative. The whole thing, this whole world needs a double negative, you know, to get out. He says in the Course, prepare ye now for the undoing of what never was. Say again? Say again? What's that? You know, you see, this is a journey without distance to a goal that has never changed. What? What? A journey without distance. Oh, he's so playful. So playful. Now, I understand your situation when you come to this book and you have difficulty with it, but it has to do more with readiness than it has to do with your intellect or anything else.
And I did put it down and I picked it up 8 months later and I understood. I read the whole book.
Yeah.
But I read it like intellectually. Yes, I did. And I was trying to understand everything through that way and it didn't work for me. I picked it up 8 months later and I understood it better.
Yeah.
And I still put it down for a while, I must say. And then I picked it up and I read it. But in the meantime, there were lots of other books coming out, explaining in much simpler terms to my brain to understand A Course of Miracles. You know, a lot of other authors came out and said, and Mark, I like the disappearance of the universe and all the different things. Made me understand much better because I couldn't always understand what was written in the book. You know, I'm a very simple person. I need you. Okay, this is what this means and this is what this means, you know. And the other books were, I've read your book. That made it more clear to me. But I found it very tough. And I've given my book. My whole family, I've got 7 children, they've all read this. And they're all doing it, but in their own paces. And, Mom, what does this mean? I said, oh, you know.
Now they're asking you.
Yeah, they're asking me, and I said, oh, God,
Yeah. That's beautiful though, because you were determined, you were persistent, and you felt the helpfulness of it. Even in spite of the difficulties, you persisted. And I think that's the discipline I was talking about. All of us need to persist, even despite resistances and difficulties and challenges. We have to overcome and persist. For me, Frances one time said to me, she said, David, somehow I thought that you knew this course before the book came into your life. By the way that you reacted to it, the way that it came into your life, the way that you could memorize it and those kind of things. It's almost like you knew it before you came in contact with the book. And the best part for me is not trying to figure anything out in form, but in coming to a clarity. And what I mean by clarity is Jesus says peace and understanding go together and cannot be found apart. So until you're perfectly peaceful, it means you don't understand anything at all. That's how this works. No wonder it's frustrating and challenging, because until we know peace, we don't know anything. That we were created as peace, and in our identity as Christ, and peace of mind is the only thing that we can truly know, and everything of the world is an attempt to not know who we are. It's the identity question thing. So that's what we have so much fun with, is we receive things like Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment, online Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment, Instrument for Peace, all kinds of things. And this goes back to Desiree's question, like, if we don't want to go to a long retreat, if we don't want to go to the monastery, if we don't want to go and live in community, we don't want to do all these things, is there anything available to us right now? My answer is everything's available to you right now. I've spent the last 25 years trying to make everything available to everybody. That's why I use the internet so much. That's why people in remote areas can download things, even if they get a stick and they download it at their nearest town and take it out to where they live. Everything is actually always available for us. The real question is, do I want where this is heading? Jesus says, you're really not resisting the means, you're resisting the end. Because if you believe in the ego, the end is there is no ego. Everything is love, and the ego will resist where this is heading. The ego is always in there chirping away, don't do it, don't do it. Yeah, I heard that guidance too, but don't follow. I don't care if you can hear it, just don't follow it. Don't you dare. Because it's like the ego knows that it will be gone if you keep following this intuitive guidance. It will disappear from awareness. It feels like it's going to be obliterated, and it doesn't want that. So you're not really afraid of the means, you're afraid of the end. And in the end, you experience that the means and end are one. You always, like Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, you always had the power to go home. You just had to click your heels and say there's no place like home. You had to want it, you had to desire it. And that is what brings it into awareness. So we're not really like trying to advocate forms. We are saying that sometimes, I think Francis can really speak to that, that these symbols of spiritual community that were so helpful for you, were so helpful in my life, at the later part of the parable of David, that they were given, they were just guided. It wasn't something, when we were younger, or even young adults, we weren't sitting at home going, where is the spiritual community that I can join? In fact, if somebody had mentioned that when I was a child growing up, or even in my 20s in university, if somebody said, what do you think about living in a spiritual community? I'd say, that sounds kind of weird. What does that even mean? I knew mom and dad and family structures, and I don't know these other symbols. Is that like that Charlie Manson mess wedding stuff? And we see a few things on the news, but we're not used to living in that kind of context. And neither of us had any of that going on in our minds. We just were open to guidance, like what would be helpful on my spiritual journey. The Course is a self-study book, and I think a lot of people study it, sometimes study it for years, and they may go to a course group or they may do it on their own. And then when they go to a group, there's how deep does the group want to go? Is it a social group, or let's have some candies and food, and it's more like a social group, and we read this is a study group, or are we really interested in waking up? Are we interested in going to the full extent of where this goal is taking us? Or are we still going to try to, trim the Course down to pint size? There's this book that I read and study. I've even gone around the world where sometimes people, in South America, people were afraid to, women were afraid to show the Course book to their husbands. They would have their girlfriends over, study the book, and then they would hide the book before their husbands would come home. Hide it. Or not speak about it. And some of you know that you're studying this book and you're maybe not broadcasting it to everybody in your family. It probably took a while before they saw the changes in you, and they saw how helpful it was in your life, that they started maybe asking a curious question like, hey mom, what's going on? You look like you're doing better than you ever did before. You see there's an invitation.